Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Online Tennis Podcast. Today, I'm joined by Vansh. Vansh, how you doing?
Doing splendid, Jack. How are you?
Good. As I was saying, a bit flu, but I'll be fine. Today, we are talking Djokovic and Tsitsipas at the Australian Open. Big final there. Djokovic was able to win in straight sets. It was 6-3, 7-6, 7-6 in the end. I've not heard any of Vansh's thoughts yet, so I'll get them all in a second. The records, though: 10 Australian Open titles, 93 singles titles. I just found out today that he's just overtaken Nadal in terms of singles titles won. Obviously ties him at 22 Grand Slams. The significance of it all was massive. Today, though, we are really going to talk about the nitty-gritty of the analysis of the match. Obviously, on paper, Tsitsipas v Djokovic, it's now 11-2 head-to-head, right? And you think every single time it's going to go exactly the same way. In a lot of ways it did, but I think a lot of people like to kind of have it broken down. Why was Djokovic able to be so dominant so easily in that match? Why was it always a given? Was it always a given? And were there a few surprises along the way, maybe? What were your thoughts first, I guess, Vanch?
Yeah, so this match was going to be interesting from a different point of view because we saw them play each other a bunch indoors, at the end of last year, and we thought, okay, Tsitsipas is playing well. He's definitely poised for this. He's not going to shy away from the moment. This is okay. It's his second major final. It's Djokovic's 33rd, and we know all about how amazing he is in those pristine conditions. Played all 7 matches at night, so you figured, okay, maybe there's a chance if Tsitsipas has a chance, he has to come out guns blazing, dominate with his serve and forehand as much as he possibly can and take control of the match. That didn't exactly pan out because in the first set, Djokovic seized on just 1 or 2 points of nerves and he was able to get the early break and just cruise with that set. And Tsitsipas wasn't making any impact whatsoever on his return of serve. But then, as he started, getting some scoreboard pressure along in the second set, you thought, okay, maybe there's a chance here. Maybe towards the end of the second, maybe in a tiebreak. Although we know how good Djokovic is in tiebreaks, and he just locks down and refuses to miss. TBC that happened again. But but actually before that, I mean, there was also a set point
Yes,
that
there was. Yeah.
and that, I mean, you can either go two ways. You can criticize Steph for saying, okay, that was way too passive. You should have done a lot more there. You sort of opened the gates for Djokovic to go for the inside in forehand, and you've just been, the backhand trades were not good enough there. Use the forehand, run around it, and do some damage.
Yeah.
Or you could, you could say that, if he was to do that, he might overplay, and it's like finding that tricky balance between overplaying and getting too passive, and that's what Djokovic does to you. He squeezes those errors out.
You've said loads there, Vanch. I'll go back to the serving first because that's massive for me, and a lot of people are aware of Tsitsipas's returning flaws. It becomes doubly important for Tsitsipas to hold his serve, obviously. But this might be an interesting stat to yourself, Vanch.
Mm-hmm.
Tsitsipas does a good job of that. Obviously, you know
Yeah.
that he holds serve well, but in terms of his rivals, Djokovic's rivals, Tsitsipas covers his first serve better than any of the rest of them. So Nadal,
True.
obviously, I guess, Murray also maybe obviously, but then Federer, Zverev, Medvedev, his first serve percentage statistically on a hard court has been better than all of them historically against Djokovic. Right, so you're talking
Yeah.
22% first serve return points won for Djokovic against Tsitsipas compared to 28% for Zverev, 31% for Medvedev, 28% for Federer. It's quite significant. So because the guy's got such a good serve, obviously at 6'4", and a better forehand arguably than Zverev and Medvedev, Federer, honestly, those numbers surprise me a little. But nonetheless, Tsitsipas does it better than all of them. Like, so he was always going to be able to hold serve. It was always within his grasp, right? And for him to slip
Yep.
up in the first set like that was a real. And obviously, he said it himself after the match in the press conference. He really didn't want to start like that because it was a little lapse in concentration, and it was within his powers to hold serve for the entirety of the match. I guess, Vanch, is that too kind?
No, I mean, you definitely want to come out, if you're Steph, and really assert yourself and start out strong and not surrender that break the way he did. But once he did dig his teeth into it in the second and third set, there were some opportunities there that I felt like, maybe if he takes that set point, maybe if he doesn't play such a poor second set tiebreak, there's a few regrets that I think he'll have. And I've noticed this in Rod Laver Arena in these finals. Djokovic just comes out guns blazing in most of these finals. You can look at 2019 against Nadal. You can look at 2020 against Thiem as well. He quickly went up 3-0. And, team kind of wrestled back the control, but he still ended up winning the set 6-4.
Mm.
You can look at the Medvedev match. And the same thing kind of happened in 2021. And it's just like Djokovic is just so aware of that moment in that first set. And it wasn't the case throughout this whole tournament. Even though he was winning easily, he was having slip ups in the first sets against Tommy Paul and even against Steve Minor and Rublev before he utterly destroyed them. It was close for about 4 or 5 games. Here we didn't even have that. We just straight up had the break in the fourth game.
Yeah, I really want to talk about the return a bit more as well, though, and just sort of contextualize that for people, because a lot of people, again, I was saying that, Vansh, people are aware of how important the return can be for Tsitsipas. As you're saying, he managed to fashion enough returns to get him the set point and stuff in the
Yep.
in the second set. But overall, this return is always going to be a weakness for Tsitsipas. We look at Djokovic's second serve. I think this is a good place to start. Djokovic's second serve in the ad court. He likes to go down the tee with what Craig O'Shaughnessy called a hybrid serve. Something not quite a first serve, not something quite a second serve, a sliding serve to the forehand, right? And throughout the entirety of the tournament, he generally used the sliding serve more often in the ad court than the wide serve on second serve.
Mm-hmm.
Against Tsitsipas, you probably won't be surprised to hear, Vansh, a kicker to the backhand every single time. It is as predictable as you like, but there's not much Tsitsipas can do about it. Now, there's one difference he made in this match compared to historical matches. He was quite good at dealing with the one in the ad court. So he'd neutralise it better than he generally has. We saw it in the Chorich match as well at the United Cup. I knew he had the power to sort of stay neutral, at least in cross-court rallies, better than he had in the past. He's a little better at dealing with the one up high. However, in the juice court, unfortunately, it's a lot harder for Tsitsipas to stay away from the Djokovic forehand, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was just a source of 3 points over and over and over again. He barely ever won a point when he had the kick serve kicked up to his one-hander in the juice court compared to the ad court, where at least he was able to stay neutral. From in the juice court, it was a big weakness. And if he's going to beat Djokovic in the future, that's something he absolutely has to patch up. He needs something better from there.
I think that's a good point because especially on the ad side, I have noticed that he's been going back a little bit further on the return, a la Nadal, Medvedev type, and just not necessarily in this match, but more against other players, just so he can get a little bit more height on that backhand, a little bit more loop, and maybe even run around it and hit some damaging-ish forehands, so he can at least get back to neutral, and then he can use his speed and athleticism and work his way back into the point. That's on the ad side, but on the deuce side, yeah, I mean, when Djokovic hits that one tee, and Steph is trying to block his return, he's really getting no depth on it, no reward, is at a disadvantage right from the get-go. And then Djokovic, I don't know about you, but I mean, forehand to forehand rallies. This was a killer for Steph.
Yeah.
I mean, he was getting no advantage whatsoever, at least not as significant enough at all. I mean, he was losing this battle, forehand to forehand. And that's what I think Djokovic, this is how he beats these players, like you're saying, Federer, Del Potro, players like that who have a really strong forehand that are righty.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he's beating them in that forehand to forehand cross court dynamic, and he's opening up that side and then going to their weaker wing instead of peppering the backhand over and over again, because you don't want to do that against Tsitsipas, because he'll just camp in that ad corner and he'll run around his backhand and hit a lot of forehand inside in, inside out, or he's comfortable just without moving and just transferring his weight into those backhands. Generally, he can hurt you, but he's not going to miss much.
Yeah.
So you have to keep him honest, and that's where Djokovic was just masterful from the baseline.
Yeah.
I mean, he just uses his precision so well in that regard.
Yeah, I think there's quite a lot to dissect there, Vanch, and I love that you touched on it, especially just thinking about the return there. Obviously, Tsitsipas, when he has that backhand really high up and it goes to Djokovic's forehand, Djokovic has a ton of options, right? For Tsitsipas, when he gets a forehand, I feel like, honestly, Vanch, I really want to know your thoughts here, because it either stems from the Tsitsipas backhand weakness, or it stems from or a combination of the two, the Djokovic forehand strength, which has improved just out of mind recently. I honestly would say it's like, according to the Australian Open website, he made 3 unforced errors in that wing, which sounds sounds kind, but it could be right. I don't know who's keeping stats there. It's got to be close to that anyway, compared to, I think it was 27 forced errors and winners combined. So you're talking just insane stats from that wing. At the same time, though, I think it can be kind in this matchup. Just looking at the return again, I feel like Tsitsipas has to sort of eke over to his backhand side to cover that, and then his forehand can be exposed a little bit more. If you look at the unreturned stats, for example, Tsitsipas made 48%, or he missed, 48% of his forehand returns off the first serve compared to 23% on his backhand. And obviously you'd expect it to be the other way around. Djokovic is able to open up the court so well on both sides and pressurize the backhand so much, he can go into the forehand wing a bit more easily. And then from the baseline as well, I think all roads lead to the backhand, basically, because when Djokovic has a forehand, he's got so much spin and shape on it now, he can loop it to the Tsitsipas backhand, and immediately, if you get anything defensive from there, the rally's over, right? There's no way back for Tsitsipas because he can't do anything to counter that when he gets it high to the backhand, right? Or heavy to the backhand, at least. Hello, sorry for interrupting the video. 86% of you guys aren't subscribed to the channel. Please shoot us a like, please shoot us a subscribe. It would help on the line a lot. Thank you.
So any kind of trade that's short, anything that's kind of semi-central, or I mean, honestly, even like 3/4 of the way in no man's land, it feels like Steph is toast. Even with how fast he is and how athletic he is to be able to, get the ball back in play and get it back to neutral, I just feel like he's not able to recover from that position. And then he's sort of in two minds when he's hitting his own forehand. If he has something short, I feel like he gets so excited. He starts kind of jumping into the shots a little bit.
Yeah.
And then he kind of overplays, and then he misses, and those are like balls that we wouldn't see him miss against Khachanov or some of the other players that he was playing, even Sinner, in the fourth round. And against Novak, he just feel like he has to do that little bit extra, and he knows that Djokovic is just going to make him play that a little bit more, and he's going to be able to use his depth. And maybe it won't even be a strong shot that Djokovic gets back, but you just know in the back of your mind that he's going to get to one more, and he's going to use his depth. It's the depth that's a killer for Djokovic, because it's not just that he's able to defend and get those balls back. He gets so much interest on them too when he gets them. And then if Tsitsipas is too passive on it, then we know what's going to happen. It's and the backhand is never really going to be a source for him. It's not like he can do a la Stan Wawrinka and just rip it down the line. I mean, actually, to be honest, he did hit a couple of really good ones.
He did
in this match, but it's not something that he can rely on consistently, for sure.
But I mean, you look at, so when they're trading cross court, it's like Tsitsipas either has to go down the line, right, or keep trading cross court, which he can do better than he used to. Again, Djokovic made more backhand unforced errors than Tsitsipas in this match. So actually, there was some really good cross-court rally temperament for some of it. But if Tsitsipas wants to end that dynamic, it has to go down the line with a lot of risk, because he needs to go close to the sideline. Otherwise, give Djokovic a sniff of a forehand, he can just loop it into the backhand, or he can go big into the Tsitsipas forehand. And either or is a bad option for Tsitsipas. Sometimes, obviously, the forehand of Tsitsipas is so good that he was able to sort of turn it around if he went into the forehand too early, but generally it was always advantage Djokovic, because he would be able to do something with his forehand into Tsitsipas's backhand where Tsitsipas couldn't do the same to Djokovic, right? So Djokovic doesn't need to go close to the sidelines when he goes down the line, because Tsitsipas's forehand into Djokovic's backhand on defense, exactly, it gets neutralized. If Djokovic gets a racket on it, it's just back to square one for Tsitsipas. So that's why we saw 3 forehand unforced errors in the second set tiebreak that just kind of went errant, and it's because as soon as Tsitsipas gets the chance, his eyes light up.
Yeah, he's not able to stay calm in those moments, because he knows, like, this is my chance, and if I don't take it now, then I'm not going to be able to live with myself. It's kind of brutal.
It's tough, and honestly, that's the problem. We talk about Tsitsipas redlining his forehand. That's what it looks like, getting a sniff of a forehand basically, and having to go big on to the Djokovic forehand or the Djokovic backhand. Either way, there is a tiny space to enter that is not coming back to the baseline with depth. Whereas with Tsitsipas, Djokovic doesn't even need to loop it big into the backhand corner to get something short a lot of the time. It's a killer, and it was too much to come back from. It was always advantage Djokovic. And
the same thing on the forehand approach. If he didn't hit the approach exceptionally well, you knew Djokovic was going to go cross court with his sliding backhand and make Tsitsipas hit a difficult volley. There were a couple of occasions where I thought Steph should have made that volley. It wasn't super difficult. I mean, certainly someone of his skill and caliber can pull that off. Yeah. And I think, that was maybe in the 8th game of the second set that would have had a break point. I just kind of circled that in my mind. Yeah. Like, that was maybe an opportunity missed. And I think he missed another one later on in that set. And those are chances. I mean, you just don't get them back,
There
unfortunately.
was another point just before the volley that he missed. I know the one you mean,
Yeah,
where Tsitsipas had a backhand slice coming in as well, right? And I think he netted it,
yeah,
or maybe pushed it
yeah.
long, one or the other.
I think he pushed it long, but he had enough time to maybe make it a forehand.
That too.
So
Yeah,
that's, he could have used his forehand, I think, and then he would have been fine at the net, I think. But yeah, it's
it's
slim.
tough. It's tough. It's tough, fans, because Tsitsipas said he couldn't have done anything else, and I actually, I kind of believe him. Like he didn't play
Yeah,
a bad match at all. I thought he played really well
no,
at
he
times.
didn't.
Um,
Yeah, he did, and I mean, he held his own on the serve, like you said. I mean, 15 aces. Won over 50% of his second serve points. First serve percentage was not bad at
mhm.
all. So you look at those stats, and you're like, is there really that much more he could have done? Like, not a whole lot, right?
No.
I mean, he was up a break in the third set. Maybe he has some regrets. 1-love, 30-love. Maybe he can hold for 2-love, and maybe Djokovic kind of lets that set go
Mhm.
in his head, like we've seen him do. I think he's very strategic about letting these sets go. Maybe, but he's already 2 sets to love down at that point, and yeah, and you can just see the stress on his face. It's
He did well considering, all analysis
yeah,
aside, the way he sort of held himself afterward and the way he did fight, regardless of the fact, maybe
yeah,
deep down he knew this was going to be like a 99% chance Djokovic is winning, right? Because all the odds were against him. But yeah, I mean,
yeah,
he did do everything possible. He said afterwards, getting our asses kicked is for sure a very good lesson every single time. And I believe him. Yeah, he said it makes him a better player. It makes you root for him, right? I'm really keen to see him do well now.
yeah. I am too, especially because I feel like mentally he's in a better place. I mean, you saw those matches at the United Cup. You saw his level getting to the final. I don't think the level is the issue per se. I think his general average level is. I think his floor has actually gone up since the U.S. Open. So I think that's encouraging. The thing for him is that he needs to be able to give himself more shots at these majors and play better in the second half of the
Yeah,
year, because he's done so well now in Australia. He's made 3 semis, and then now this final, and then we know how good he is on clay. But it's just that he has those letdowns in the second half of the season. If he can avoid those, I still feel pretty confident he can win at least one
yeah,
major. You feel the same way?
yeah. But it ties into the next question, which is, who stops Djokovic basically, and that's going to be the roadblock for anybody surely that wants to win a major.
Yeah,
Unless Djokovic goes out early at some point in a slam that Tsitsipas is in, it's tough to see Tsitsipas beating him anywhere.
yeah,
So yeah, so Tsitsipas absolutely could win a slam, but Djokovic will stop him unfortunately for a while. Tsitsipas isn't the man to do it. Medvedev, I still hold out hope for Medvedev. I think the matchup is great in a lot of ways. It's just Medvedev has to be playing well, and obviously we've not seen that in a long time. I don't think that's harsh to say. Since last year's
no,
Australian Open final, he's just not playing his best.
hasn't been the same player
No,
since.
I'd say
Yeah,
so. Zverev could get back to his best, and he has got a chance.
he looks far away
He
from it.
does.
He looks far away from it
Exactly.
now.
Yeah.
So
I think
yeah,
honestly, best chance Alcaraz. Uh,
Alcaraz. Yeah, if Alcaraz can build up some momentum here in Rio and Buenos Aires, and then in Sunshine Double, well, Djokovic is not he's not allowed to play those tournaments yet,
yeah.
right? So you'll probably see Novak back in Monte Carlo after
Mhm.
Dubai, I'm guessing, and then he's traditionally been a little bit slow in these early parts of the clay season. I think he usually finds his form by Rome. So hopefully we have a healthy Nadal, healthy Alcaraz, healthy Djokovic, and healthy Tsitsipas, and these four players along with Runa and Sinner and Rude and others, and then we have a really exciting Roland Garros. That's what
Yeah.
I'm hoping.
My if I really wanted to make the question harsh, I I don't know who beats Djokovic on a hard court in a slam, because honestly, I don't think Alcaraz goes in as the favourite, even close to his best against Djokovic in a hard court. I'm sure it would be close. Of course, it would be. Alcaraz is a fantastic player, but Djokovic can absorb that sort of pace all day long on a hard court, where other players cannot do that, and the serve is not good enough at the moment to challenge Djokovic's for sure. So Alcaraz isn't the guy to beat him on a hard court for me at a slam.
Certainly not yet. Maybe that could change in a
Yeah.
year or two. I think his Alcaraz's first serve effectiveness definitely has to get better in order for this to be a more evenly playing match. I
Mhm.
think. I mean, but this is just our hunch because we haven't actually seen them play on a hard
Mhm.
court yet. But that's what I think. But definitely the U.S. Open is where, if Djokovic is a little vulnerable, I would say that's where it is. I mean, his record in finals, there's 3 wins and 6 losses. I think he's now 10-0 in Australia, right? But a lot of that has to do with like the time of the year, those lead-in tournaments, wind. I think more humidity, tires himself out by the time he gets to the final. More pressure, like we saw in 2021. So it's going to be interesting. But every time we get so excited about these young players, the tail end of the previous year, and then Djokovic just comes in Melbourne and he just storms through the field.
Yeah, it's good.
It doesn't matter what shape he's in. And then, Nadal kind of does the same for his slam. And now it's kind of interesting because they're tied at 22-22. And this is like, if Nadal is not up to it, this is breakpoint Djokovic now. He can really, snap this lead open. Yeah, I mean, Djokovic, what did you think of his reaction when he won? Obviously, having gone through everything he's been through the last 12 months, the emotional outpouring, he called it the biggest win of his
Yeah,
his
I
career
saw
and
that.
his life.
I obviously a massive fan of seeing players show their emotions on court. It's not very common for Djokovic to do it after a victory, so you can tell it was a
Mhm.
huge deal for him. So quite endearing. Really liked it.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I mean, I think overall it was a decent tournament. I quite enjoyed the women's final. There were a few other good matches in the first week, and Tsitsipas Sinner was a good one. I'm excited towards the road to Indian Wells and then the clay season.
Likewise,
So
Vanch. Yeah, likewise. Okay, we'll close up shop there. Thanks very much for joining me, Vanch. As always, so much knowledge. Much appreciated letting me just sort of prod your brain a little bit. Please catch Vanch at VanchV2K on Twitter. Vanch, thanks very much for joining me.
thank you very much, Jack. I really enjoyed it.
No worries. We'll catch you next time on the Online Tennis Podcast. Cheers.